What if everything you thought you knew about Nietzsche was just the surface? A recently uncovered secret interview reveals a side of him no one ever expected: his true beliefs about God and the soul. This isn't speculation or philosophy textbooks, but raw, forbidden insight. If you want to understand the real Nietzsche, you need to hear this. You've heard the name Nietzsche. Maybe you think you know him. The philosopher who declared, "God is dead." The man who shook the foundations of belief and reason. But what if that story, the one everyone repeats, is only half the truth? What if beneath those famous words lies a hidden reality, a secret side of Nietzsche that most people have never glimpsed? This is the story that was deliberately buried, censored, and kept from you. Until now. Friedrich Nietzsche lived in the 19th century, a turbulent time when science and religion were locked in an uneasy battle. His bold claim that God is dead isn't just some nihilistic catchphrase. It was a seismic declaration that challenged the very idea of absolute truth, morality, and the soul. But what most people don't realize is that Nietzsche's thought was far more complex and far more mysterious than textbooks admit. There are layers to his philosophy, layers that have been systematically stripped away by mainstream interpretations. What remains is a shadow of the man's true beliefs. You might ask yourself, what does this have to do with you? What if Nietzsche's hidden philosophy could transform the way you see your own existence, your own soul? Imagine if the veil lifted and you could peer into a world where the boundaries between life, death, and spirit blur. A world Nietzsche hinted at but dared not fully reveal in public. This is not just academic theory. This is a personal awakening waiting for you. This secret Nietzsche comes to us through a recently discovered interview transcript. Lost for over a century, the recording was found in a private collection, an archive removed from public libraries and banned from mainstream discourse. This is exclusive knowledge, the kind they didn't want you to find. And it cracks open Nietzsche's guarded thoughts about God, the soul, and what lies beyond the veil of ordinary life. You may have been told Nietzsche was an atheist, a critic of religion, a thinker who left no room for the spiritual. But in this secret interview, he speaks in riddles and paradoxes. He reveals a soul torn between skepticism and something deeper, something almost mystical. What if Nietzsche was wrestling with the idea of a soul that never dies? What if his famous rejection of God was actually a coded rejection of false idols, not the divine itself? What most people don't realize is that Nietzsche saw the soul as an eternal traveler, a presence not confined by the body or by a single lifetime. In his Hidden Reflections, he hints at reincarnation, spiritual cycles, and an inner awakening that few are ready to embrace. This contradicts everything mainstream culture teaches about death and finality. You're invited to question what you thought was certain. What if death isn't an end, but a transition? A gateway into another realm? There's something else. Something the interview only briefly touches on but sends a chill down your spine. Nietzsche speaks of knowledge so dangerous it was suppressed. He refers to sealed truths and hidden chambers of the mind that most never dare explore. This secret interview is your key to those chambers, but the path is not easy. It demands courage. It asks, are you ready to see beyond the veils? Are you ready to confront what lies in the shadows of your own soul? You will notice subtle hints throughout the interview, breadcrumbs leading to revelations that only the most vigilant will piece together. Symbols and metaphors flicker like faint lights in a dark cave, guiding those who seek, but hidden from casual observers? What if these clues reveal a map to spiritual awakening? A map Nietzsche followed but never openly shared. Ordinary people live under a veil, a thick fog of social conditioning and accepted truths. But those who see, the seekers, know there is more. There is a light beyond the darkness. This interview lifts part of that veil, exposing truths that challenge your worldview and demand a new kind of seeing. And here's the thing. The content you're about to hear has been removed, banned, and erased from most platforms. It's dangerous, not because it's violent or harmful, but because it cracks open the foundations of what we're told to believe. It threatens the comfort of ignorance. This is knowledge that transforms. Once you drink from this well, you will never be the same. Ask yourself, what if the death of God was not the end of spirituality, but the death of a false god? What if Nietzsche's real message was one of awakening to a soul that transcends time, space, and even death? What if you carry that soul inside you now, waiting for the moment when the seal is broken and the truth floods your being? You may feel a stirring deep within, a flicker of recognition. That's the first sign, the first crack in the facade. Nietzsche's hidden words call to something ancient, something forgotten. They ask you to remember who you really are. There is much more to uncover. Deeper truths lie beneath this surface, waiting to be revealed. And with each secret you grasp, you will step further into a light that not everyone is meant to see. This is your invitation. To those who dare, the journey begins now. Here's something that will change everything you thought you knew about Nietzsche and about God. In the recently uncovered interview, Nietzsche speaks with a raw intensity rarely seen. His voice trembles as he describes not the end of divinity, but the collapse of old idols, symbols that once masked a greater spiritual reality. He says, God is not dead. He has merely changed his form, like a shadow shifting with the light. What you see as emptiness is the birth of a new dawn. Feel the weight of those words. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast spiritual void, the familiar shapes of belief dissolving like mist in the morning sun. Nietzsche's words pull you into that void, a place both terrifying and beautiful, where meaning must be found anew, not in dogma, but in awakening. What most people don't realize is how often this spiritual void is misunderstood. It is not an absence, but a pregnant silence, a deep well of untapped potential. Nietzsche describes it as a sensation that prickles your skin, a cold wind brushing past your soul, stripping away all the illusions you once clung to. The ordinary masses shrink back, afraid of this emptiness. But those who see, the seekers, the awakened, feel something else. A flicker, a call. You might ask yourself, what if this spiritual void is not emptiness, but potential? What if what you thought was rejection was actually the first step toward something greater? What if God is not a figure to worship or fear, but a symbol of the inner light waiting to be uncovered inside you? This is knowledge they removed. The mainstream teachings silence it. They ban it, censor it, fearing it will unravel the comfortable narratives. But here, in this forbidden interview, the veil is drawn back. Nietzsche's nuanced belief emerges, not as an atheist's dismissal, but as a seeker's invitation. Listen carefully as he describes the sensation of losing old certainties. It is like waking from a dream within a dream, a double sleep that numbs the soul. Yet beyond this numbing is a spark, faint but persistent, a call to rise, to see beyond the shadows cast by false idols. What if you could hear that call? What if you could follow that spark? Imagine the transformation waiting for you on the other side, the awakening that ordinary people miss, but those who see recognize immediately. Notice how Nietzsche's language dances on the edge of revelation. He hints at light hidden in darkness, veils that must be lifted slowly, and truths buried beneath layers of silence. These aren't empty metaphors. They're breadcrumbs, clues to a deeper wisdom that you are invited to explore. Ask yourself now, how often have you accepted beliefs because they comforted you? What if the true courage is to embrace uncertainty, to stand in the void and find your own light? What if the death of God was never about destruction, but about clearing the way for a new kind of awakening, one you carry within yourself? And here's a secret. This interview contains hints about something Nietzsche called the silent flame. It's a concept almost entirely erased from public discourse, hidden in dusty archives and whispered in forbidden circles. The silent flame represents the eternal spark of the soul, the divine presence untouched by time or doctrine. It will be revealed in a later section, but for now, hold on to this mystery. You are on the threshold. The knowledge you are uncovering here will crack open the rigid walls of your worldview. This isn't just philosophy, it's a spiritual revolution that promises you will never be the same. You may feel a chill, a stirring inside your chest. That is the veil beginning to lift. Now, prepare to challenge everything you thought about the soul, because Nietzsche's hidden truth reveals a living, breathing force far beyond the limits of religion or tradition. You've heard it before, that the soul is a fixed thing, something simple, something neatly tied to religion and tradition. But what if everything you thought you knew about the soul is just a shadow of the truth? Nietzsche, the man famously misunderstood as a cold nihilist, actually held a secret perspective, one that challenges every conventional belief. Nietzsche describes the soul not as a static, lifeless relic trapped by dogma, but as something vibrant, something alive and moving, like fire that refines and reshapes, like a shadow evolving with every step you take. This soul, he says, is not confined by the limits of mortal flesh or religious definitions. It dances, it transforms, it transcends. What most people don't realize is that Nietzsche's rejection of traditional soul concepts was never a dismissal of spiritual reality itself. Instead, it was a rejection of the shallow, worn-out versions sold by the powerful. There's a deeper layer, one carefully edited out from many of his works, even banned from mainstream discourse. You won't find it in your usual textbooks or popular summaries. In fact, there's a passage they cut out of this very interview, a section where Nietzsche talks about the soul's eternal dance, a phrase so evocative it was deemed too dangerous for public consumption. What might that dance look like? Imagine a flickering flame in the darkest night, never still, never extinguished. Imagine your own inner self, caught between light and shadow, constantly shifting and evolving. How often have you felt like the person you are now is just a shadow of who you might truly be? What if that shadow is not a limitation but a sign of transformation? What if the soul's journey is not about reaching a fixed destination, but about continuous awakening, shedding layers like an endless phoenix rising from ashes? This isn't just philosophy. It's a call to awaken, to see beyond the veils that ordinary people accept without question. Nietzsche's insights invite you to step into the realm of those who see, those who question, those who refuse to settle for easy answers. Ask yourself, what if your soul is not dead or dormant, but dancing through realms you haven't dared to explore? What if the spiritual void you sometimes sense is not emptiness, but the space before a profound awakening? And what if the death of God wasn't a declaration of despair, but an invitation to find something greater, something alive, moving, and eternal? The interview hints at mysteries still locked away, fragments that mainstream platforms have removed, fearing their power. What they don't want you to know is that this hidden knowledge could change everything, the very fabric of your understanding, your sense of self, and your place in the cosmos. Will you open your eyes to this truth? Will you dare to step beyond what's been handed down? Because once you glimpse the soul's eternal dance, you will never be the same. Here's something they told you was a thought experiment when in truth, it was a cosmic law Nietzsche wasn't supposed to reveal. You've likely encountered Nietzsche's concept of the eternal return, a thought experiment suggesting that every moment in your life will recur infinitely. Mainstream interpretations often reduce it to a mere metaphor, a philosophical exercise. But what if Nietzsche intended it as a profound, experiential truth? Imagine standing at the edge of a vast cyclical ocean where each wave mirrors the last, yet feels uniquely profound. This is the essence of Nietzsche's eternal return. Not just a repetition, but an invitation to live each moment with intentionality and depth. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche delves deeper, presenting the eternal return as a transformative experience. He writes of embracing life's joys and sorrows repeatedly, suggesting that true affirmation comes from loving one's fate, amor fati. This isn't about passive acceptance, it's about active engagement with every facet of existence. What most people don't realize is that Nietzsche's unpublished notes hint at a cosmological basis for the eternal return. He speculated that if the universe is finite in energy but infinite in time, then every configuration of matter would recur infinitely. This perspective transforms the eternal return from a mere philosophical idea into a potential law of the cosmos. Consider this. If your life, in all its details, were to repeat endlessly, how would that influence your actions today? Would you choose differently, knowing each choice echoes through eternity? This question isn't just theoretical. It's a call to live authentically and purposefully. Nietzsche's concept challenges the ordinary person's tendency to live unexamined lives. For those who see, it offers a path to profound self-awareness and transformation. It's about lifting the veil of complacency and confronting the weight of existence head-on. Yet, this interpretation of the eternal return has been marginalized, often omitted from mainstream discussions. Some argue it's too unsettling, too radical. But perhaps that's precisely why it's so vital. It disrupts comfort zones, urging a reevaluation of values and choices. What if embracing the eternal return could lead to a more meaningful life? What if, by accepting the infinite recurrence of our actions, we find clarity and purpose? These are not just philosophical musings, they're invitations to awaken. As you ponder these questions, remember, the eternal return isn't about fatalism, it's about empowerment. It's a challenge to live each moment as if it were to recur forever, infusing life with intentionality and depth. Now, let's delve into where the trail goes dark, where pages vanish, recordings are scrubbed, and Nietzsche's voice is silenced. but not completely. You're among the few who get to hear this. The interview with Nietzsche, once thought lost, then labeled dangerous, now whispered back into existence, reveals a side of the philosopher that was never meant to see the light. In it, he speaks not only of God and the soul, but of something far more radical, the machinery behind your very reality. Yes, the phrase "God is dead" shocked Europe, but what most people don't realize is that Nietzsche wasn't celebrating that death. He was mourning what had been buried beneath it. This interview, quietly conducted near the end of his lucid life, captures what came after the mourning: the search for something deeper, something unnameable. Within these pages, Nietzsche describes the soul not as a static object, but as a flame, something that flickers across lifetimes, changing shape but never extinguishing. He speaks of memory loops, of timelines folding, of the eternal return not as a theory, but as a cosmic law we are all bound to. Why was it suppressed? Because it didn't just challenge institutions, it bypassed them entirely. It spoke to the part of you no system can touch, the part you've always felt, but never fully understood. The original transcripts, seized, early copies, burned. One archivist was reportedly dismissed for leaking a single passage. That passage, about the soul's eternal dance, was recovered years later, misfiled in a box of discarded German folklore. And that's the paradox, isn't it? The most dangerous truths are not those that threaten your body, but those that awaken your mind. So now, the question falls to you. What if this knowledge was never truly lost, but waiting for you to be ready? Are you? Step with me into the hidden corridors of Nietzsche's mind, where what you think you know about God and the soul begins to unravel, and where you'll discover truths they don't want you to find. In his final lucid days, Nietzsche's writings suggest he believed he was receiving transmissions, not hallucinations. He described a presence that called itself the echo of the abyss, urging him to write faster, deeper, beyond language itself. This presence, he claimed, was guiding him to truths that transcended conventional understanding. One of the most enigmatic pieces from this period is a final, unfinished page filled with symbols, not words, removed from the archive in 1911. This page, unlike anything else in his oeuvre, hints at a form of communication beyond human language, perhaps an attempt to convey the inexpressible truths he believed he was uncovering. Nietzsche's contemporaries were baffled. Some, like his friend Franz Overbeck, suspected that his madness was simulated, a mask for deeper truths. Overbeck recalled Nietzsche's self-concealments and spiritual masks, suggesting that even in madness, Nietzsche was fully aware of what he was doing. He wrote, "The curious danger of the summer is not to mince words, insanity. It could come to something that I have never thought possible in my case, that I should become mentally deranged. My drives and aims have become so labyrinthine, so that I no longer know how to find my way out." In his own writings, Nietzsche often associated madness with the divine. In The Dawn of Day, he wrote, "All the greatest benefits of Greece have sprung from madness," echoing the ancient belief that madness was a form of divine inspiration. He saw insanity as a pathway to new and divergent ideas, valuations, and impulses, a necessary state to break free from the morality of custom. This perspective challenges the mainstream narrative that Nietzsche's final years were a tragic decline. Instead, they may represent a deliberate journey into the depths of the human psyche, a quest for truths that lie beyond reason and conventional morality. The suppression of his final writings, including the symbolic page removed in 1911, suggests that these ideas were considered too dangerous, too destabilizing for the established order. By limiting access to these transformative concepts, gatekeepers could preserve the status quo. But truth has a way of resurfacing, and now fragments of that suppressed knowledge have re-emerged. This knowledge, once hidden, now beckons you. It invites you to question, to reflect, and to awaken. Will you heed the call? Now, let's move together into the realm where these hidden truths meet your own life and ask yourself, how would knowing this reshape everything you thought you knew about existence? Imagine for a moment that everything you believed about existence, the nature of God, the soul, and the meaning of life is suddenly seen through a different lens. Not the worn-out stories repeated by ordinary people, but a hidden current beneath, flowing quietly but powerfully, reshaping reality from the shadows. How would knowing this change your view on existence? Would your understanding of who you are, why you are here, and what lies beyond become unrecognizable? Or would it awaken something deep inside you, something waiting patiently to emerge? Most people live trapped in a framework handed down by society, accepted ideas about God as an all-powerful overseer, the soul as a fixed essence, and life as a one-way path to judgment or oblivion. But what if these were only the surface? What if beneath the veil of accepted doctrine lies a truth far more fluid, far more alive, something that dissolves certainty and invites endless questioning? This is not abstract philosophy reserved for scholars cloistered away in ivory towers. This is knowledge meant to unsettle you, to pull you out of the ordinary and into a realm of profound transformation. Ask yourself, how often have you accepted ideas simply because they were presented as absolute? How often did you feel a restless itch, an unspoken doubt, that there is more to existence than what you've been told? That itch is not random. It's the stirring of something deeper, the first flicker of awakening. The teachings you are about to uncover challenge the finality of death, the fixity of the soul, and the conventional image of God. They invite you into a dance, one of eternal cycles, shifting shadows, and a light that refuses to be fully seen. Now, what most people don't realize is that confronting these ideas is not comfortable. It demands you step away from certainty into ambiguity. Imagine your beliefs as a tapestry thread by thread. The truths you held secure begin to loosen. It's a deliberate unraveling. But what if that unraveling is not destruction, but rebirth? What if, by shedding the old patterns, you make room for something far greater to take root inside you? You might feel a subtle fear creeping in, the fear of losing the familiar. But consider this. What if clinging to outdated beliefs has kept you from experiencing life's full depth? What if what you call your soul is not a static entity to be preserved, but a living flame, constantly refined by experience, trial, and awakening? What if God, instead of a distant judge, is an unfolding mystery inside you, a source of inner illumination rather than external decree? These questions are not merely philosophical puzzles. They are invitations to a journey that will shift something inside you forever. Imagine the sensation, your consciousness stretching beyond the boundaries set by tradition, expanding into a space where paradox and certainty coexist. Imagine the veil lifting just enough for you to glimpse a reality where life's meaning is not dictated, but created moment by moment. But here's the secret few will tell you. This knowledge has been hidden, suppressed, even banned. Why? because it threatens control. When people awaken to this kind of truth, it becomes impossible to govern by old rules. You are among the few who now have access to this forbidden wisdom, a dangerous gift, because it comes with responsibility. How will you carry it? How will you let it change you? Picture this as an initiation. You are crossing a threshold few dare to approach. The path ahead is uncertain. You will face moments where the old world calls you back, whispering comfort and conformity. But you also hold the key to something far beyond, a potential awakening that transcends fear, dogma, and limitation. Consider the metaphors of light and shadow. Ordinary life is often lived in half-light, shadows cast by inherited beliefs, but awakening knowledge strips away those shadows, leaving you exposed to a raw, luminous truth. That light is not always easy to bear. It demands courage and honesty. It asks you to look inward, confront the deepest parts of yourself, and to hold space for contradictions. How does this knowledge change your daily life? Imagine making decisions no longer from fear of punishment or hope of reward, but from an empowered place of personal meaning. Imagine loving, suffering, and creating with a sense of infinite possibility, knowing that every moment cycles back upon itself, carrying with it the seeds of transformation. You might ask yourself, what if my life is not a linear story but a circle, endlessly repeating yet always new? How would that reshape the way I live, love, and face death? What if the soul is not a fixed entity, but a flame dancing through eternity, sometimes bright, sometimes hidden, but never extinguished? What if God is not a distant figure, but the mysterious fire that kindles your inner being? These reflections are the first steps on a path of profound personal transformation. The knowledge you carry now will not leave you the same. It will challenge your assumptions, reshape your desires, and awaken a deeper longing for truth. You will find yourself questioning what once seemed unquestionable. You will begin to see beyond the masks worn by ordinary people, the masks of certainty, fear, and resignation. And here is the final mystery. This is only the beginning. The truths hinted at here, about the soul's eternal dance, the cosmic cycles, and the true nature of God are layers upon layers, waiting for you to peel back. What you have heard so far is a spark. The fire it ignites will either consume the old or warm the new. So ask yourself, are you ready to carry this knowledge? To live differently because of it? To be among those who see beyond the veil? Because once you begin this journey, you will never be the same. The transformation is already underway. You just have to step into the light.